Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with award-winning documentary filmmaker Sally Nellson. For 12 years, she has been capturing and sharing the stories of what happens every day in public schools. She shows the joys and struggles. Having directed and edited more than 100 films, Sally has a deep understanding of how to connect with her subjects and translate that to greater understandings amongst the audience. Her new initiative is a nationwide movement to end the teacher shortage through a documentary film and impact campaign. After 15 years as a storyteller in the investment management business, Sally decided to use her skills to uncover and share the stories of those who don't commonly have a voice. Enjoy this story.
Excellent. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm delighted. Well, in the message that you sent me, I was like, oh, he gets it. Like, he knows what I do. And then when I dug down for more info, I saw jazz, and I thought, okay.
Yeah.
He likes artists.
I do. Yeah, that's kind of my bread and butter. So, and I write and paint, and I do a lot of video myself, so I completely understand the creative world. So,
well, great.
So
I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I am too. And before we get into your life as an award-winning documentary filmmaker, I want to know how you survived COVID, this 2+ year period of kind of lockdowns and everything we went through. How did you get through it, and how has it changed the way that you kind of conduct business and live your life now?
It's really interesting, given that we spend most of our time filming in schools. It was hard to figure out how to stay connected and how to make sure that our community, meaning the education ecosystem and any other citizen in Nebraska, could stay connected to education in a positive way. So we started out just by filming the teacher parades at the very beginning of COVID, so that people could see, how much the educators still wanted to be engaged, and book drop-offs and, any creative thing that they could figure out. And then we have good friends up at the Omaha Nation Reservation School. And because the Native American tribes were being so hard hit by COVID, we wanted to, because we had become friends with some of the elders, and we cared so deeply for them that we wanted to go up there and see, how are they approaching school? Because it's difficult enough to get kids to come to school in the first place, but when you have this fear of infecting a family member, it's even more difficult. And so during COVID, in the middle of it, they allowed us, one of the few people that they let come onto their land during COVID. And so we filmed all their policies and procedures and how they made it all work. And then after that, we did 2 other films about COVID so that people could see how teachers were handling it. And then the last one was a series that we did with students in different parts of the state, because we wanted to be able to hear directly from them the impact that it was having on them. So that's how we survived COVID, for sure.
Interesting. My day job is as an IT technician for a large school district in the Kansas City metro. So, and my wife's a 5th grade teacher in the same district, so I have a pretty good insight.
Wow.
I see it firsthand. And I have a son with special needs who is 18 now. He was 16 when it started. The 2 favorite things that he loved in the world was baseball and school. So, I've seen the devastation, but I've heard reports too, and I didn't realize this because the mainstream media has a different agenda than most everybody else, but I did realize the Native Americans got hit the absolute hardest of anybody on the planet.
They did. And it just made we already felt grateful. We've been covering Nebraska schools for 12 years, and I always wanted to do something at Omaha Nation, but I knew that it would take time to develop a relationship and trust. And we started out by, their administrative team came to us and said, hey, we want you to do a story on the success of our district. And I said, great, but we don't feel like we are the right people to tell the story. It needs to come from the community itself. So we made friends with the head of their culture department, and she's working so hard to keep the language alive. And we decided that before we could do anything else, we wanted to work with the students to teach them the skill of filmmaking. Because if they can learn how to edit, if they can learn how to shoot and interview, those are marketable skills. And so we tried that, and then they had a cluster of suicides right before the holidays. Then right after the holidays, COVID hit. So, we got interrupted right in the middle of that. And because we stayed in touch with them the whole time, they allowed us to come back, and we ended up doing 2 stories on their district. So anyway.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let me ask you this. Let's stay in that environment, the school environment, and take you and put you in front of 3rd graders at a career day, and one of them looks up and says, "What is it that you do for a living?" How would you answer them?
Well, I tell stories, but I think to a 3rd grader, I would say that I'm very curious, and I ask people to tell me about themselves. And then I turn around and I'm a mirror, and I hold up that mirror to them, and then I share it with the world in order to help others connect with the humanity of that person. And that's a big thing to say to a 3rd grader. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a filmmaker. I make films, and people get that.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious, how did this journey into film begin for you? Take me back to your childhood. How were all these seeds planted in you, and how did you become fascinated with film?
It's really interesting because this is not at all where I thought I would end up. When I was younger, I first thought that I wanted to replace Anna Wintour as the editor of Vogue. And then I got to University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I took my first textiles, clothing, and design class, and I found myself drawing lines, and I went, this is not doing it for me. If this is what it is, I can't do this. So I changed my major to marketing and finance and decided I wanted to go off and make a fortune, and was obsessed with, I was materialistic, and I wanted all of those things. So I moved out to Boston, and I started working in financial services and was very successful at a very young age. And I hit 30, and I went, okay, that was fun. What can I do next? I'm really interested. I'd read a book about the woman who produced Sleepless in Seattle. And I thought, oh, I can do that. Like, this is what I do all the time. I'm a creative director. I could be a producer, no problem. So I quit my job, and without having a job in Los Angeles, I got in the car and drove to LA. And before you knew it, I had a job as a consultant for all the big financial services companies, Schwab and JP Morgan, T. Rowe Price. And I was so consumed with that I thought, I'm going to start introducing video storytelling to all my clients, and every single thing that they do, I want them to do that. And so I used that as kind of a DIY film school. And so I would be on set, and I would ask the DP everything about why he or she was making the decisions that they were making. I would ask the lighting guy and the audio guy, and then sitting in with the poor editor who probably got tired of me asking all these questions, but I learned so much and I fell in love with it. And because I was traveling so much, I wasn't really able to establish a real life in Los Angeles, even though I would live there the rest of my life now. I moved back to Nebraska to experience my parents as an adult and kind of help care for them. So again, still consulting, still doing video. And one day, and I taught myself to edit in Final Cut, and I taught myself to interview, which one wouldn't think would be that difficult, but it definitely is, as you know, given what you do for a living. It's an art. And one day we were asked to do a gala video for JDRF. one of my daughter's classmates was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in kindergarten. So I sat down and I interviewed 4 moms, and all 4 moms cried. And I did my first dramatic edit. And the guys I worked with came in and they looked at the rough cut, and each one of them had tears in their eyes. And I pushed myself away from the computer and I went, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. No one taught me how to do this. No one taught me how to tell a story. I think this is my zone of genius. And so when the opportunity came along to help reframe the narrative of public education in Nebraska, I jumped and decided to become a storyteller on behalf of schools, educators, kids, parents across the state.
So talk to me a little bit about, who have been kind of like a hero or a role model for you in your life?
Oh, it's a great question. Well, definitely my parents. My mom, who survived lung cancer twice, breast cancer, who cared for my dad, who will be 87 in a couple weeks, lives on her own. She's so strong and amazing. My sister, who taught for 20 years and gave her life to those kids. And honestly, every administrator, teacher, I know this sounds cheesy, but all the schools that I've been in, and I see how dedicated and how much love people have in school for the children that show up every day, regardless of how they show up. I'm totally inspired by that. And then, Aaron Sorkin. So just as an aside.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, let's up the ante a little bit. If you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, filmmaker or otherwise, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Aaron Sorkin.
Okay.
I'm the biggest fan of The West Wing. I want to know everything about his process, and even though I've taken the masterclass on masterclass, I still would love to talk to him.
Wonderful. So, talk to me a little bit about what your first film was, like the one that, maybe the first film that you did, or the one that you really felt like you caught steam and you really found your groove.
So after the first year of doing I Love Public Schools, we made 12 films between 8 and 10 minutes about great things happening across the state in individual schools. And I came back to our funder and I said, I think our schools are great. I think the problem is poverty. And I had no idea. And I imagine that most people around the state don't either. So is it okay if I do a half an hour piece about an issue that's serious? It's not a happy film. And when I did Standing Up to Poverty, that looked at, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm not ready, I can't keep up, and I don't speak the language. It was Poverty 101, and it really demonstrated how much schools do to help children be successful. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And yeah, that was the first one, and everyone since then has just been better and better.
So what is it about, so every day we wake up, our alarms go off or whatever, however we get up, and we look at our day and we go through it. What motivates you to get through your day? What is it that drives you?
I mean, possibility. I wake up every day knowing there's so much more for me to do. And I just couldn't be more excited. I feel so much gratitude that I get to do this work. That's what, I mean, knowing that and believing that anything is possible is what gets me out of bed.
So if we get to the end of that proverbial day, how do you quantify a good day? How do you look back today and say, that worked, that made sense?
I think when I have been able to connect with someone and have a conversation that I have some kind of aha. I've advanced an idea, or I've really created a connection with someone, or deepened a connection with someone that I already know. That to me is a great day.
What are you the proudest of in your life up to this point? You've had different, career paths, different things that have happened, but what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I suppose, children is the lowest hanging fruit. I have 3 incredible daughters, 20, 17, and 15, and the relationship that I have with them and that they have with one another. So in my personal life, that's what I'm most proud of. In my professional life, I think that I have helped people better understand and empathize with the struggles that schools have. And I have helped people that work in buildings, and teachers, administrators, everyone feel seen and heard and supported.
So if you have a dream tonight, you run into like the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the things that you've gone through and you've done, what advice would you give your younger self?
Don't be so afraid of what others think. Be yourself. And, there's a quote that I live by every day, which is, what would you attempt to do if you knew you couldn't fail? So just jump.
So what was the film that you saw growing up that really left an indelible mark on you? I mean, we all have these seminal artistic moments growing up. What was that film for you? It's not a film. It's The West Wing. And I watch the series. It's on rotation in my house constantly, because it's the dialogue. It's the ability to take a subject that might be dry and make it move and make it feel and deliver people the broccoli wrapped in incredible drama and dialogue. I've learned more about politics and civics from watching The West Wing than anything I learned in school. Yeah, I got to say it was a wonderful show for sure.
Yeah.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, clients, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of yourself. Who do you think you are?
Regardless of my age, I feel like I'm a 28-year-old creative with a big heart, full of gratitude, who wants every day to be better, to know more, and to experience everything I possibly can while I'm here. My biggest fear is that I'm running out of time. And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm healthy as you can be, but I just worry that I'm running out of time to do all the things that I want to do.
So for anyone out there that's interested in your life and your work, anything in regards to what you do, Sally, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I'd love to have them go look at the work that we've done for public schools at I Love PS, which is public schools, iloveps.org. And then I have a new project that is my passion right now. It's called Who Taught You? And the idea is we want to help retain and recruit educators and end the educator shortage by, 76% of kids or of teachers say that respect is the biggest problem in their profession, lack of respect. And we want to help bring that respect back by encouraging people to think about their own educators and the difference that they made in their lives. So it's an impact campaign and a documentary film, and you can find out more at whotaughtyou.org.
Wonderful. Sally, hey, thank you for opening up. Thank you for the work you do. I really appreciate you opening up. Have a great year and good luck with everything.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.